Good evening again, everyone. Just a quick reminder, if you are just now joining us, if you are a Marymount student, to just go ahead and put your name and student ID in the chat. You can send it directly to me, Emily Kane Dombrowski. We want to make sure that we are capturing your attendance here this evening. And with that, we are going to get started with the webinar. So again, we are really pleased to be hosting this webinar this evening with the School of Education. Let me pull something up. Okay. Well, thanks so much for being here, everyone. We are excited that you're joining us today to hear from three representatives from three well-known public and private school systems: the Diocese of Arlington Catholic Schools, Alexandria City Public Schools, and Prince William County Public Schools. These three representatives were kind enough to give of their evening, and some of them even gave a part of their day off to speak with you this evening about how to navigate the teaching job search and hopefully provide some insider tips on how to get hired. I'm excited to share that moderating this panel this evening is Dr. Paula Cristina Azevedo, the Director of Clinical Experiences in the School of Education at Marymount. Some of you may know Dr. Azevedo. And to start off today's panel, she is going to ask our panelists a series of questions pertaining to their own professional journey and navigating the job search as a new teacher. We will save time at the end of the panel for you all, our audience, to ask questions of the panelists. Also, as questions come to mind during the panel, feel free to put them in the Q&A section of the webinar, and we will be sure to hold those questions until the end. Again, and I'll probably say this as, or I'll share this in the chat as more people come in. If you are a Marymount student, if you wouldn't mind just putting your name and student ID in the chat, you can send it directly to me. That would be great. And yeah, we're just very excited for everyone to be here, excited to hear all the things that our panelists have to share, and hope it will be a really meaningful use of time. So with that, I will pass it off to my colleague, Dr. Azevedo.
Thank you so much, Emily, and good evening, everyone. I am thrilled to be here moderating this evening's event and facilitating this conversation with three representatives from notable school systems in the area. So let me introduce each of them for you tonight. Our first panelist is David Lima. David Lima is currently the Assistant Superintendent for Catholic Leadership and Accreditation in the Office of Catholic Schools for Arlington Diocese. Prior to his current position, he was the principal at St. William of York Catholic School in Stafford, Virginia, and taught English and history at the middle school and high school levels. Mr. Lima also spent over a decade with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security as a regulator and trainer. He received a Bachelor's of Art in History from Syracuse University and a Master's in Public Administration from Anna Maria College. Mr. Lima lives in Stafford, Virginia with his wife, Julie, and his 4 children. Thank you so much for being here tonight, David. Our second panelist is Margaret Brown. Margaret Brown joined Alexandria City Public Schools as the Director of Recruitment and Retention in December of 2021. Ms. Brown has worked in education since 2006 and is experienced in HR competencies and strategies, including staffing, training, resource development, and critical evaluation. She was previously with the District of Columbia Public Schools from 2011 to 2021, where she served as the director within the Office of Employee Services, where she developed and implemented licensure compliance strategies, communication plans, and corresponding personnel actions. Previously, she worked at the American Board for Certification of Teacher Excellence, SCORE Educational Centers, and served as a 3rd grade teacher within DCPS. Thank you so much, Margaret, for being here today. And lastly, I am pleased to welcome Toy Tanton to our panel. Toy Tanton earned a Bachelor's of Art degree in Mass Communication from the University of Akron and Masters of Education and Curriculum and Instruction from Cleveland State University. Ms. Tayton also has 25 years experience working in education on the collegiate level as a classroom teacher and building administrator. Currently, she serves as an administrative coordinator of recruitment and retention in the Department of Human Resources of Prince William County Public Schools. In addition to recruiting new staff, Toy is responsible for student teacher placement. Welcome, Toy. Welcome, everyone. As Emily mentioned, we will start the panel with a series of questions and then allow our audience to ask questions of the panelists. So audience members, please feel free throughout this panel event in the Q&A section of the webinar to type in your questions, and we will be sure to have them answered towards the end of tonight's event. All right, so I'm going to start us off with our first question, and I'm going to ask Mr. Lima to answer the question, and then we'll go to Ms. Brown, and then Ms. Tanton will jump in. All right, you guys can just jump in. This is a conversation, so feel free to just open it up. So I like to start off with understanding, your professional careers and why you chose to enter the field of education. So for those of you, and actually all of you have teaching experience, and so I'd love to hear more about why you chose to go into teaching and what led you into this career path, and where you are currently now as well.
Thank you for that question. It's a great question, and it's a very personal question for me. It started when I was a youth. When I was a child, I was not the smartest kid. I was Title I, diagnosed with dyslexia, had a really hard time in school, was teased as a child for not being the smart kid. And I worked really hard in high school and worked really hard through college. And at the end of college, when I was ready to get out into the workforce, I said to myself, I'm going to make sure that no child is teased. And I'm going to make sure that every child has a chance, and they know no matter what, they have a chance out there. And that's what led me to education, was to make sure that what I went through as a child, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure no other child goes through that, because I had it really rough in those, especially in the early ed years, K through 5. And that's where my heart was. So that's definitely what led me into education.
Great. So I have wanted to be in education my entire life. I didn't put it in my bio, but I did receive my degree in elementary education from the University of Richmond, and sort of knew that was my path from an early age. Always been passionate about students. I think it's an incredible job where, more so than any other career, you can change, shape, influence a young mind in life. I did teach for DC Public Schools. I obviously don't do so now. But as I've said, I'm committed to education, particularly public education. That's been my entire world, 17 years now. And I just believe that it is a place where individuals can make more of an impact than anywhere else. And it feels really incredible to be a part of that community. So while I may not be teaching anymore, I think I'm in education for life. So happy to be still here.
And my bite for education came somewhere when I was working at Cleveland State University. Shortly after undergrad, I got a job working in the registrar's office first for about 4.5 years. And then the director of admissions came over and spoke to me, and then I became an admissions officer for 4.5 years. And during that time, I got this bug of helping people. And so within that, I started looking into master's degree programs and pursued one it was early childhood with curriculum instruction. So I was able to get my master's degree plus licensure. And within that, my mindset was a number of the students that I was helping while I was working in degree clearance and admissions had this ideology that they weren't good enough or they wouldn't be good in school and things like that. So one of my main reasons for going into elementary ed is that I wanted to be that person at the beginning of their lives that was able to tell them that they are good enough, that they were going to be prosperous, and they were good, they were going to be successful. So that's how I went from the end of the academic process to the beginning of the academic process. And so coming in as a teacher, I was a career switcher about age 34, and I moved here from Cleveland, Ohio. And after teaching, I taught third grade. I had a chance to teach adult ed. Then I went into administration. And then after that, I started feeling like I needed to grow. I know some of you have that feeling like it's time to grow. And within that, I got a job as administrative coordinator for recruitment and retention for Prince William. And within that, my class size changed. It's grown from third grade adult ed to the building, now the entire school division. So I feel like my reach is growing further and further, and having opportunities like this to speak to you all is things like that, things that I get a chance to do. So it's kind of evolved over time.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal stories and your experience and your development and growth in the field of education. It's really inspiring, and I know all of our students are appreciating hearing how they can grow as professionals, even beyond the classroom, and still, Toy, like you said, have that greater reach. That's awesome. So let me ask you all, when teacher candidates are considering what schools to apply to teach, what should they consider when thinking about good fit?
So I feel, I'm sorry, does somebody else want to start?
No,
Yes,
please go.
okay. So good fit to me looks like, because I work with student teachers, much of the time that I get a chance to spend with them and talk to them is about what it feels like in their classroom environment. Every school has its own feeling, and you know right away what it feels like to you. So when you're thinking about a fit for a school or a school division, you think about that hum that you hear in that building when you go into it, when you're in that classroom with those kids. So a good fit is something that aligns with your core values, and you'll know right away. It won't be something that you have to really worry about a long time. It'll either sit right with you or it won't. And either way, you need to respond to that. So you'll know, just use your experiences to be your guide.
That's a wonderful way to say that. And I think we at ACPS really prioritize getting our candidates in front of our principals throughout the recruitment process. That while we in central office and HR do a lot of the support, facilitation, and operations end of things, for us, it's really important for candidates to see, feel that connection. And so we heavily involve our school leaders into our recruitment process. They come with us to job fairs. They're on all of our panels, so that our folks who are pursuing ACPS really get a pulse of what that unique school culture and feeling is. They can really hone in. I'm really connecting with the school leader, their mission and vision, and their lens for their students. And I think you said it far better than I, but I echo that connection, that feeling wholeheartedly.
It's hard to follow you because you're saying, you know, everything that I would say. I mean, I think every school has a pulse. Every school has its own lifeblood, and you know exactly what it feels when you get in there, how that school feels, and what that environment is when you get in. It's its own life. And when you get in that school, you'll know exactly when you get in, if you fit in, if you feel the love and the presence when you get in there. And you'll know if you don't fit in, you'll know when you fit in. And it's when you get in and you know that that's your school, it clicks. You'll feel like it's your family. And frankly, if it is the right fit, you're gonna be with them more than you're with your own family, and you're gonna, and it feels right, but I think Toy said it perfectly. So it's very hard to come in with any wiser words, because it was the perfect answer. But you'll know right when you walk in.
Yeah, I feel, and I want to add this too. We understand that you all will still have to interview, so you will feel it. You'll be able to feel the presence of the people you're in the room with. I have gone into interviews, I think we all have, where you're just like, Lord, if I can get through the next 25 minutes and I can get out of here and run back to my car. Or you get back in your car like, oh, I hope they pick me. I hope they pick me, because it feels so good. It feels so right. So you'll know in the interview process too, if you aren't student teaching there.
So I really appreciate that you mentioned the interview process, because as all of you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about was, well, what kind of questions can a candidate ask the potential employer that will kind of help gauge more concretely than an intuitive feeling. Like that is really important. I totally agree. But what kind of questions should candidates ask in an interview? Like,
I think asking a lot of questions about how a school leader and administrative team supports the social emotional well-being of their students. Because if they have that lens for how they support students, then they absolutely do for their staff. And I think that really gives a candidate a sense of school priorities, what their real mission and vision is. I keep saying whenever I interview folks and when I'm interviewing, I always ask, how do you find the joy? And so questions about how schools really see the social emotional well-being of their students is really going to give, I think, a lens into how they see the culture of their school.
I agree, because any school that you're interviewing with, they like to talk about themselves. Like, it's the time. It's hard for candidates to talk about themselves, but sometimes it's hard for schools too. So look for the ones that you can see it. Usually the people, like if you're in a panel, and most of your interviews will be panel interviews, you'll see them kind of smiling, look at each other like, you go, now you go, now you go, now you go. But be able to express who you are in every answer that you give. I know that I'm just kind of taking what you said, Dr. Acevedo, and expand on it. But, in addition to asking us questions, be prepared to review or let your personality shine through in your answers, because they'll be looking for that genuineness for the kids.
I think that's that's what I always look for, is who are you, right? Because if I don't know who you are, I know what the canned answers are going to be, right? I know I can do this. I know what classroom management is. I know what this is. But I need to know who you are, and I need to know if you're the right fit for my school. So you need to make sure that you are letting me know what your personality is. So I know, are you the right fit for that school? Because if I don't know you, if I can't tell you who you are, then you're not answering the questions. So in the Arlington Diocese, we're a little different too, because we're Christ-centered. So we're looking for, are you able to use Christ in everything that we do, and how and he flows into all of our classes. So, but knowing who you are, and don't be afraid don't hold back. You are you, and you need to show who you are, because you can't be fake. So make sure you're showing who you are on a daily basis in every interview that you give.
it's like, Toy and David, you knew exactly what my next question was. Which is, what are principals considering, thinking about when they're hiring a new teacher? And so, I'd love for you all to expand on that and add to that.
Whenever I am asked this question, the two words that I make sure to tell every candidate is, I'm looking for someone who is confident and competent. Because throughout that day, you are going to wear so many hats. And so when I am talking to you, I know that from arrival to dismissal, you're going to answer approximately 1,000 questions. You're going to take on approximately 27 to 37 roles. Plus you're responsible for keeping them safe, give them access to the curriculum. So I'm looking for somebody that is competent, knows the curriculum, has a good understanding of human beings, and can teach the human beings, and confident. You got to have it. You got to have that moxie. And that doesn't mean that you're not afraid or anything like that. They need to be able to see that side of you too. But you have to be confident enough to say, I remember saying to my kids, Miss Tanton is not having the best day. We're going to have a good day, but right now I'm not having the best day. So we're going to have to regroup and get it together. So as David said, it is important that you are yourself, but you are bringing your A game, because they are taking on the nuances that you are not teaching. Like the coffee you're drinking, how you wear your outfits, everything that you are not planning on, that's not on your lesson. The kids are getting all of that first. And then after they buy into you. So I have to looking for people who are believable. Somebody I can see, that's not in my office every day telling me he's driving me crazy. They will. They're children. That's going to happen. But that you're not ready to run out the door every day, that this is part of the process and you know why you're there. So
I think to piggyback, I think you said it, but for me, it's someone who really shows a commitment to student success.
Mhm.
Because teaching is hard, right? Education is hard. And as Toy
Mhm.
said, you wear a lot of hats, but if someone can show me in an interview that they are truly committed to student success,
Mhm.
in whatever way that looks like on a day-to-day basis, that they're someone who's going to be, just as Toy described, someone who's wearing those many hats, committed to students on the good days and the bad days and the tough days. So I'm looking for someone who just shows me that, and it could be any, I see it in all different ways through what they're saying, just the passion they're showing on their face when they're talking about students and their experience, but just shows me you're in it, and you're passionate about education and student success, and you'll do what it takes.
And I'm looking for someone with confidence, but confidence who shows confidence, but is also willing to learn, and also knows that they don't know it all yet, right? Because I know everyone here, we've been doing this for a really long time, and we still don't know it all, right? I come home many days and I sit down with my wife at dinner and say, "You're not going to believe what I saw today. This is the first time I've seen it today." And I think it's important that new teachers realize that they don't know it all, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to go to that experienced teacher and say, "Hey, how do I handle this? What do I do now?" Because we don't want those new teachers to be caught in, "I shouldn't ask for help. It's just a sign of weakness," because that's not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is actually a sign of strength. And I look for that in an interview. Are they going to be too proud to ask for help? Because that's not what we're looking for. We need someone who is strong enough to say, "You know what, I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to handle the 2 children with an IEP that I need to be able to handle in that classroom at the same time. And I need someone to help me work through that." So I'm looking for that in an interview as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're really looking at the whole person, the whole packet, right? Like, not just do they know the curriculum, but can they just be human, right? And have that human touch, because you're dealing with kids, right? And so having that connection with students is so important, especially these days. So appreciate that. So let's get drill a little deeper about the interview process. So can you describe what the interview process kind of looks like, sounds like, feels like? For instance, should candidates, share their teaching portfolios? And if so, like, what should they include? Like, should they bring lessons with them? Those kinds of things. I hope that was clear. Sorry. And if Margaret, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I absolutely do encourage folks to bring portfolios to interviews. I think any opportunity that you can show your creativity, your ability to apply a standard in a really unique, fun, dynamic way. We at ACPS have a really strong focus on equity. And so we're really pushing all of our teachers to view all their lessons from an equity lens. And so ways that you can demonstrate to a school leader that you understand that, the value of it, and how to apply that in a myriad of ways is wonderful. So I think any opportunity you can quite literally show your reflections on teaching, and that would be shown at the panel level interview at the school level. So that wouldn't be something that you would give to human resources while we're doing sort of the larger scale vetting organization. That would be done at the school level interview. So we do absolutely encourage that. It's not mandated, but very strongly encouraged, and our school leaders will look for that.
And Prince William, so we are site-based, meaning that our schools hire their own teachers. And usually I'll just to give you kind of roundabout, interviews are anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes. They're usually panel style, where you're meeting with the principal, assistant principal, maybe a counselor, and grade level teachers that are probably on that team. You are welcome to bring your portfolio. It is not required. Definitely, if you feel like there is something that you would like to highlight about a lesson that you've taught or something that you've studied, absolutely. So far as being prepared with the lesson, the schools that would like for you to do like a mini lesson or talk you through it, they'll tell you ahead of time so that you can have that prepared. But if you have for your program, your current program, have to put together a portfolio, sure, you're welcome to bring it with you. You may reference it, but just keeping in mind the time frame for the interview, you want to be able to be brief and succinct in your answers. And, you know, like I said, if you need to reference it, and I mean, you can go through it ahead of time. I know you all have it broken up into standards, so it's something you should be able to reference quickly. And they may ask you additional questions after that.
In the Arlington Diocese, we're the same. We each principal hires their own teachers. So we don't require anything for you to bring. If you feel like you want to bring something, by all means, please do it. If you want to show your skills, I'm sure a principal would be more than happy to look at it if it's going to help. But really, I think what we require more is we're looking for the whole person, like we talked about earlier. And we're looking, are you a great fit for our schools? Are you faith-based? Remember, being in the Arlington Diocese, we're a little bit different. So we want to make sure that you are fitting in with our Christ-centered Catholic beliefs. So are you going to come in and not only know the curriculum, but are you going to also be a faith-filled person as well? So that's going to have to come through during that interview as well. So that's a big part of your interview process. So it's going to be a little bit different than if you're going with our counterparts on the public school side. But by all means, you're not required to have a portfolio. If you're looking at the Arlington Diocese, you're going to be looking at 40 some odd schools, and you're going to be interviewing with 40 some odd principals, each one being a little bit different.
Are there specific questions or topics that you find tend to like trip up candidates a little bit? And if so, can you share those secrets and how best to approach those?
I always found the hardest questions that candidates always stumbled on are those, give me a time when this happened and how did you deal with it? And I find that candidates have a hard time coming up, one, with the situation, and two, how did they deal with it? So I think one way to conquer that is don't rush into the answer. Think it through. We're not in a rush when we're waiting for your answer. So I know when those questions come up, when you think about a time when this happened, think about that time. Don't rush into the answer, and really think it through and come up with the answer and come up with how did you really solve it? And sometimes it might not have been a solution, and that's okay, but tell us what happened. I'd rather hear that you didn't solve it, but you thought of something than just quickly gave a flippant answer to it. Then, so just really think it through and give us a thoughtful answer than just something really fast.
I think to that end, I sometimes find that candidates are trying to answer that question in which they want you to hear it. So they're not necessarily not accurately describing what happened, but they may just be picking and choosing parts of what they did or didn't do in a way to make them seem as though they had it down pat, they knew exactly what to do, when us on panels and our school leaders have been in those shoes. They've all been teachers, so they know that in teaching, it doesn't always go in the way in which you planned. And so I think Davey says earlier is be honest, right? Show that you understand that mistakes and challenges happen. You learn from them, you ask for help, and you grow. So we would rather see you talk about how did you grow from that situation as opposed to you doing it correctly or getting it right the first time, because we know that just doesn't happen.
For me, it is the question, tell me a little bit about yourself. You could just see the blood drain from their face when you say it. and then they go into this whole long explanation. And so let me give you the Cliff Notes. We want to know about you as an educator. So that when I was 8 years old, unless it was like when I was 8 years old, I had a really powerful teacher, Fast forward, today, what that led me to do is da-da, 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 da-da. When we're asking you to tell you about yourselves, it is in relation to education. So tell us about some of the things that you've done in leadership roles. And now it could have been at your job at CVS, that's fine. But if it doesn't relate to education, you can kind of skim some of those things down to kind of keep it education related.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my least favorite questions too.
Yeah.
So I totally understand.
Because you never know when to stop. You're just like, when I was 4, I used to play school at home. You get that, or you have somebody that's like, I don't have anything. I'm like, you have something. There's a reason why you're here. So it's getting them to not pass out for that question.
Right. Oh my gosh. And it's always the first question too.
It is.
So.
It is. When I do screenings, I'm talking to people. I'm like, before we go there, just think about what I'm asking you. Just answer the question I'm asking you.
I love it. Yeah, and I love the just pausing for a minute. It's okay to just pause and just let it settle. And you can even tell the panelists wait, can I get a minute just to think this through? And they'll appreciate, because everyone's been in those shoes, right? So we all understand that. So yeah, and the big theme I'm getting from tonight so far in the last 30 minutes is just, be yourself, be human, right? We all make mistakes. Share those mistakes. That makes you actually, it may seem like it puts you in a vulnerable position, but it gives you actually more strength to be able to share that vulnerability, because it shows that you'll be vulnerable with your students as well. And that's what we want for our kiddos. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, next question. What unique challenges do you believe new teachers will be facing in the upcoming academic year? And I'm sure you have a laundry list, I can imagine. But if you can give us just a few of the challenges, and maybe some tips on how the new candidate, the new teacher, can overcome some of these challenges, or even how the county, the division, the school system or schools are attempting to resolve some of these challenges, because I'm sure there's commonality across all divisions.
And we're not saying COVID, right? Because that's our biggest challenge.
Right. We can try not to say that word, but I think it's going to come up. It's allowed.
So I find, and I'm going to revert back to my time as a principal, and I find one of the biggest challenges that every teacher, every principal, and I find every administrator deals with right now is we live in a world right now where it's immediate gratification, and our children all have that world of immediate gratification. And there's Alexa, there's smartwatches, there's smartphones, and they're all great tools, don't get me wrong, but what happens is when they're at home and they don't understand 2 times 2, they go, Alexa, what's 2 times 2? And it says 4. And then they come to the classroom and you say, Johnny, what's 2 times 2? And he doesn't know 2 times 2. And then he gets very upset about it. Or, you ask them some history question, and at home he pulls up his smartphone, and I looked at it and I have a fake background so you couldn't see it, but he doesn't know it. And then you get that immediate gratification, and all of a sudden he's upset in the classroom. So now you have classroom behaviors. So these are unique challenges that our teachers are facing on a daily basis that they have to overcome. And it's a challenge. And I think it's something that it's getting the parents on board for them to understand, help us by taking away maybe or limiting that technology when they're at home, because they're not going to be able to maybe use that technology every day in the classroom. They're going to be able to use technology. They're going to be able to use computers in the classroom. They might be able to use smart devices in the classroom, but maybe limit it. Maybe not let them use Alexa to do their math homework. Don't let them use apps to do their homework, because those smart devices are creating havoc on the classroom. It's creating all kind of issues with the teachers. And I think that's really important, that it's hurting our teachers and it's hurting the behavior of the students in the classroom. So I think that is a big challenge that our teachers are facing on a daily basis.
I think the other piece, I don't want to say the word COVID, but it's COVID related. And I think this is not unique to any school district or state. And I mentioned this earlier, it's the social and emotional needs of our students are unprecedented at this point. You have kids in their formative years when they should be establishing social connections were at home. And so there are a lot of, particularly at both of the younger ages, who just don't have that socialization they need to really know how to be with their peers. But then also some of our older students in their adolescent years, right? Those are formative years where really understand dynamics of friendships across gender, intergender, just learning how to be in the world, weren't in the world in which they were before. And so, as Troy mentioned, one of those hats that a lot of teachers are having to wear is just being that additional social emotional support for our students and helping them learn how to navigate the world when not doing so for the last 2 years. It's incredibly challenging. It's also incredibly rewarding, right? You're really providing that support that I mentioned before to students in ways that you can't anywhere else. But it is an extra add that everyone in schools has to take on at this point. And I hope that as COVID, sorry to say it again, hopefully starts to recede in the background a little bit, that's less, but I think certainly going into next school year, that'll still be very much part of the need for our students.
I would say just agreeing with my colleagues in relation to that. And now more than ever, the importance of establishing a rapport with your students. I'm a relationship builder, so it comes naturally to me. It is not to everyone. So making sure you take the time to get to know your students, because in doing so, you will learn more about them and how you can support them. So making sure you establish that, as well as making that environment. I've heard people say during interviews all the time, I want to have a safe environment, but they don't talk about any of the things they put in place for that environment to be safe. And that could be, what your classroom agreement looks like, or and it's a small thing, but if you've been in a space where you haven't had any boundaries, when you're expected to go in and have to sit down in a space and attend, they have to learn how to do that. So again, getting the buy-in, getting to know them, and then providing a space where they can learn is going to be a challenge, because for many of them, depending on what grade level you're planning, or all of them is impacted, they haven't had to be in a more, they haven't had the four walls per se, right? And so getting them back into that space more regularly is going to require more from the teacher on the front end, so that as you go along, it helps them to stay with you and their parents.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. That's really helpful, even for me, as we're preparing new teachers, to consider how we can support them as they enter into the field. Yeah, lots of challenges, and not just for new teachers, quite frankly, all the challenges that you all described, it's a challenge for veteran teachers as well. So this is for everyone. So I'm debating which question to ask next. So what advice do you have for new teachers as they are just starting the search, in the job market? What are some key things that you think they should be doing at this point?
I think just being open to all the opportunities out there, and with that, asking lots of questions, right? We know that a lot of people are applying to a lot of different districts, and we love that. We encourage that, right? We want folks to really see everything that's out there. But I think in doing so, just asking all those questions we talked in the beginning about, that fit and connection. It's just, your fit is out there. Your school is there. The school leader that's going to help you grow and develop is there. So it's about putting in the work to interviewing at lots of different places, asking those important questions, and you'll find your home.
I'd add to that, if you can visit, I know that there are some places that we still don't have access to, but if you can, either we provide bus tours, so it gives our candidates a chance to see the different types of schools that we have. But if you're interviewing, or if you want to do a school tour, I think somebody mentioned something like that in the chat. Some principals are very open to it, so they can see what it looks like. It's a buyer's market for you guys, your teachers. and we all need teachers. So it's not if, it's when and where. Advice I'd give to you as an incoming person to our profession is just please know that whatever you do, always remember you're that person in their life. So the one thing that kept me grounded as a new teacher, I taught third grade first, was that to know that when I looked across my classroom, that when they look back in their life, I was their only third grade teacher. And so I knew that on a daily basis, that whatever I did on this year of their life in education, it would be something that they could reflect on. So just keep in mind, you're that person for them for the rest of their life. It's huge, but it's exciting because there's so many things that you can impart on these kids for the time that you have with them. So my advice for you is to be excited and know that you are doing a great work. That's what I'll say.
And I'm going to kind of mimic what you all said and say, follow your heart, go where your heart leads you. You'll know when you get there that it's right. And when you get into the building and you're there for the first day and you're starting your profession, is my advice is, one, don't lose the energy. You're going to get tired. It's hard. The first year is very hard. I mean, don't let anyone tell you it's not, because it is. You're going to get tired. It's hard. Don't lose the energy. And remember, is that child in that classroom is going to look up to you, and you don't understand the impact you're going to have on those kids years from now. And you might not realize it. You might not realize 10 years from now, that child is going to come up to you and say, Mrs. Smith, do you remember this? And they're going to give you this hug, and you're going to be like, I can't believe the impact I had on that child. And just remember that. So on those days when you need that 18th cup of coffee to get you through the day, just remember the impact you're having on every one of those kids. So it is an amazing profession on a daily basis. So try to keep that energy up, even in February and March, when it's the really hard months. Just remember that.
You mean September and October, David, and then February and March.
That's correct. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But just try to remember it is an amazing journey, and there's not a minute that when it's at the end of the day that you will regret it, because it is an amazing journey.
Beautiful.
And it's the only job that you get to work with new people every 180 days. I'm just saying. I don't know if you all have thought about that. But it definitely has a beginning and ending cycle to it. So that was like, I get a new set of coworkers every 180 days. It was great. So something to think about.
And when little Johnny's on your last nerve,
yes,
180.
That's it.
I never thought of it that way, but that's a good way to describe it.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's marketable. We should market that so more teachers come in, right? I think that's good. All right, my final question to you all, and you panelists, you have been amazing, by the way. Your answers have been fantastic and so inspiring and insightful. So I really do appreciate it. So the last question is, what is one thing you wish you knew when you were entering into the teaching profession that you'd like to share with us today? Another secret.
I'll give you the clean version. No, I'm just kidding. I would say, write it down. As an educator, you are called to do a lot of different things, and you slide so easily in between your leadership roles that you don't even think about it. And that looks like, could you be the grade level chair? Or could you plan this evening, or things like that? And you do it because your principal asks or your team asks, and you don't write it down. So I would say, if I could give you something, it is update your resume, not to leave, but so that you have an ongoing document of the things that you have accomplished and established and maintained as an educator, because we undercut ourselves so much as classroom teachers. We make it seem so easy. Oh, it's no big deal. It's a big deal. Raising people's children is a big deal. But in the event that you would like to be a specialist or go into administration, many times you haven't wrote down the things that you were doing, so you don't have it. You're trying to think, what did I do or what did I do? So if every year, after a while, I would write down the things that I did for that year. And it just, looking back at it, I was like, whoa. But it also made it easy when it was time for me to transition out of the classroom into a different leadership role. I had it documented. I didn't have to think about it. So that's what I said. Write it down.
For me, I think it was believing people when they said every day is different. Intellectually, I knew that. And I said, yeah, got it. Every day different. But it wasn't until you're actually teaching, you're like, oh, that's what they mean. And then 2 is lean into that. Because when I first realized it, my first instinct was, whoa, everything's what. And I think, I enjoy control, a little bit about me. But then when I started to lean into that and realized, well, that's actually the cool part of the job, right? And recognizing the beauty in that, that's when I felt like again, being about the joy of teaching really started to happen. It's believing it, experiencing it, leaning into it, and then enjoying it. And it doesn't always happen right away. It might take a little bit, but once you get there, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I wish I believed people.
And for me, it kind of ties into what I said earlier, and it's, you don't realize what impact you have on kids years later. And I can remember, this has just happened about 2 years ago. I was leaving Mass and a young man walked up to me and he gave me this, he said, Miss Salima. And he ran over to me and he gave me a big hug and he was sobbing uncontrollably. And he said, Miss Salima, I think of you every single day. And I just want to make you proud every single day. And I just want to get A's for you because you were the only person that cared enough to take care of me. And I was like, oh, it was so great to see you. I'm so proud of you. And as he walked away, my wife said, who's that? And I said his name. I said, yeah, I did care for him. And I did try to help him out during those years, but I didn't realize what impact I had on him. And I think it's important that we as teachers know that every single day you don't realize what impact we're having on those kids. So we have to give it 100% every single day, even when we're tired, even when we don't want to get out of bed that day, even when we're just like, oh, it's February 21st. I just really need to roll back over today. That there's another child that might not have anybody at home that cares for them. And we're that only person that cares for them that day. And they can't wait to come see Mr. Lima today because we're the only person that cares for them. And if I only would have really understood that gravity on day one, I think it would have, really just put into perspective how important our job really is. So our profession is an amazing profession, and the impact we have on kids is just amazing. So just that's all. It's just an amazing thing. So that's all I can say.
Thank you so much. Wow. Again, it's just so inspiring, all of you, and sharing your stories has been so insightful. I'm inspired. I'm reminded right now about the joy of teaching. Margaret, I love that. That's beautiful. And so thank you again for joining us at this event. I'm going to now, turn it to our participants, our students who are here tonight, and see if they have any questions. Emily, let's see, actually, I can probably see them here too. Are there any, Emily, is there anything that you saw either in the chat? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a few, one in the Q&A section from
There it is.
Bernard Carpenter.
Yeah,
And then I'll
there it
send
is.
you another one as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
So Bernard is asking, is there a problem talking or mentioning COVID? It seems that the word is taboo these days. And yeah, so I mean, is it a forbidden word right now? I don't know.
No. We're all in it. I mean, we all want to be safe. We're just saying it because we are drained from it. we have just been browbeat with that word so much. It was, March 2020, the earth stood still. And we're still trying to get the axis going. We're trying to spin back on the axis again. So no, it's not. We're just being silly up here.
Yeah, it was
No,
it was
no.
in jest.
Absolutely. Own it. Own it.
Own it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've all been in some way impacted by
We're
it.
still in it.
So,
It's not over. That's why I think that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we're still in it. So yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for that clarification. We have a question from Shane. Are there any specific things in a resume that you look for? That's a great question. Yeah, I didn't talk about resumes.
Toy mentioned this in the resume. It's finding all ways that connect to education and supporting students, right? It may not necessarily be just your student teaching or just the after school tutoring. There are likely other internships, jobs, volunteer opportunities you've had. We want to see all the ways that you have directly supported, impacted students. And in the resume, you can show us how those things connect, and it gives us a glimpse into sort of your perspective on education and how all these things can come together. So not necessarily one thing, but a collection of things, I guess.
I'd like to add to what Margaret said in relation to it being grammatically correct. Please, would you make sure that it's grammatically correct? And results oriented. So as a result of this, then this happened, or, a little bit of data, we're in this data driven world. So being able to speak to it and understand your data. So let's say you gave a test or you implemented a program, a tutoring program, and, as a result of this, then student achievement was impacted like this. So those are the types of things that you might want to include. If you've done them, if you haven't, that's fine. But those are the types of things, but mostly make sure that it's accurate and that is grammatically correct.
And I would add any special skills you might have. If you know any languages, if you have any classroom management skills, I'd add those in there. And then if you're going to include a cover letter, please make sure it's the right school that you have in the cover letter, because that's going to hurt you every time. So if you're applying to St. William of York and you send a resume that says Margaret Brown Elementary, that's going to hurt you. So make sure that you check that too.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's no quicker way to turn off a school to say, you don't really care about us if you didn't take a second look there.
Thank you. All
There's
right, another question, yes, from an international student who would like to ask if there are opportunities for international students to get a job as a teacher or at least as an OPT. I'm looking for it after I graduate to gain teaching experience before I go back home. Any advice?
It's a challenging question because there's a lot of nuances there that to be frank, there isn't necessarily a cut and dry yes or no answer. We would have to take a look at one's individual status. There's, like I said, there's a lot of regulatory and legal nuances there. So maybe I just encourage folks to certainly reach out to our recruitment team if they have questions, and we'll chat through individual experiences.
Unfortunately, in Prince William, we don't sponsor international students. We work with a program called Participate. That's where we get our international students through, but we don't sponsor any students. So I'm sorry.
Arlington is the same way. We won't sponsor employees, but if you have a sponsor, we'd be more than willing to work with you through our human resources, but we won't sponsor any applicants. So I apologize for that.
Another question just came in. Is there a big difference between teaching in a public and private school?
There is. I think the biggest difference is obviously the faith-based differences. So we're Christ-centered. So Christ is in the center of everything. So all of our schools are going to have a religion component to them, where have religion class, and is part of our major curriculum. All of our schools go to Mass once a week, and Christ is at the center of everything that we do in the Diocese of Arlington. So it's, we like to say that we, not like our counterparts do the same, but they educate the whole person, but we do that including the spiritual component as well. So in the Arlington Diocese, we're going to begin every class with prayer. We're going to end every class with prayer. So there is that big different, it's a different experience. All of our kids are in uniforms. It's just a different feel. It's a beautiful experience. It's a wonderful thing to walk in and experience that prayer life when you walk in and see Jesus at the heart of everything that we do. It's wonderful. We have 18,000 students strong. We grew, and it's a great experience to be part of the Diocese of Arlington today. But it is a very big difference being part of a faith-based organization when Christ is at the center.
I would say adding to, so I went to Catholic school 3rd through 12th grade. And so all I knew about being a student was in a private school. And so when I became a public school teacher, I had to catch myself a lot of times because David is right, there is prayer. So I was used to saying it after the pledge or right before we went to lunch and things like that. So I had to kind of monitor that just because there were so many different students of different faiths, and I could not assume that we had the same belief, so I wasn't able to share it as openly. I would also say that just in general, the public school divisions are larger than private school. And so the class sizes and or amount of schools and things like that, there are more of them. So I know being a student in Catholic school, I was with the same students 3rd through 8th grade. But in the elementary school in which I taught, there were several for each grade level. So I think that's the big one. It's just many more students.
Right. I mean, our schools typically have, 20 to 25 in a classroom. And, we do have our classes. We're going to have the same classes that they have in the public schools. So we're going to have our Englishes, our maths, our social studies. We have we're curriculum just like they have in the public school systems. They're going to be smaller. You're going to have more individualized attention, which might not like that as a parent. You might not like that as a student, but it's a definite different feel. So,
and you have religion as one of your classes, whereas as one of the core classes. But we didn't in public school. That was not a class. That wasn't a course. That was an automatic piece of who you are. It's not in public school.
This is sort of an obvious thing, but in public school in Virginia, there are not just district requirements and mandates, they're statewide. So individuals teaching in Prince William and Alexandria are subject to many of the similar, statewide requirements, processes, mandates. That said, it also comes with statewide resources. So there is sort of a push and pull there. You must do these things, but to do these things, we're going to give you all of these things. So difference is that you're just working on a statewide process and not necessarily a smaller district policy or mandate there.
Because the diocese is more or less our VDOE, right? So it's where you all get all of the curriculum. And am I wrong, David?
Correct. We get our curriculum from VDOE, but we go through the Virginia Council of Private Education as well. So
Okay.
we're able to license our own teachers if they don't have a Virginia license, we can also issue them their own license.
Okay.
Through the Virginia Council of Private Education.
Yeah, I see a question just came in the chat about licensure. It's a good segue.
Perfect segue. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if students asking if I'm licensed in Virginia and move to another state, are licensing requirements different there?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, it's possible. I got my license in Ohio, and then when I moved here, I was able to get a provisional license, but I had to take another test in order to get my professional license in Virginia. So it is possible. It depends on where you go, but it is possible.
Virginia actually tends to be on the higher end in terms of Praxis cut scores, for example. So it is actually often easier to, through reciprocity, transfer your license Virginia out than
And
in.
coming in, yeah.
As someone who also had a license, started in Virginia and then transferred to DC and then also Louisiana, which is where I'm originally from, could do that quite easily. I think had I tried to go to Louisiana to Virginia, I would have had to take additional tests, maybe even coursework. But every state's different. So there's no absolute blanket yes or no answer there.
And the HR department will help you with that, as you transition in. I'm sure you all are do that all the time, are experts in that process as well. So for those who don't know, what is the Praxis?
Standardized tests that individuals need to pass to demonstrate knowledge, not only in their content area, but also pedagogical theory and skills. So it's like the GRE, but for educators. And usually there's two, the Praxis 1, which is your general content knowledge, and then your Praxis 2, which is your subject matter. So biology, special education, what have you.
And just a plug for the ECE, the Education Clinical Experiences Canvas site for our students. There you'll find all the tests that you have to take, all the requirements for student teaching and the licensure process. All of that stuff is all there available to you. Of course, I'm always available to chat, so I'm more than happy to talk you through that process. Any other questions from our audience? Let's see. Okay, so another question came in. Do student teachers get interviewed before student teaching?
Not in Prince William, we don't. I try to visit you while you're student teaching, but not before.
Got it.
Same with ACPS, we don't interview for a student teacher.
A request is made by your university supervisor with the school division for your placement. And so we don't, the interviewing might be with your school. And we do that, we ask the schools to do it to make sure that you're ready for student teaching. And so we ask the universities to request placement on your behalf to make sure we're in alignment with your program. But no, we don't request a screen or anything.
Correct. That's the same for us. And we would like more students. So if you'd like to send us more students, we would like to take more students.
Yes, please. We'll take more.
Yes. Third ed, we're really into grow your own right now.
I
so.
called it first. I know.
You got dibs?
Friendly competition. I love it. Oh, yay. See, everyone? Yes, teachers are needed. You are wanted. So yeah, I mean, the opportunities are out there for you right now. So, okay. Well, looks like we're kind of wrapping up with questions here, unless I missed something, Emily. So thank you so much, audience, students, for asking those questions. Thank you, panelists, for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily for brief announcements. Thank you.
Hi again, everyone. Thank you so much. This was a really, really great panel. So much good information and content shared just from getting to bend the ears of the experts. Marymount students, career development, as well as the School of Education are here to support you in a couple of very specific ways that we're doing that. Next Monday, February 28th, we are holding a teaching career fair. From 5:30 to 7:30, it will be in Raleigh Hall, and the panelists will be either themselves or representatives of their school systems will be present. So feel free to say hello to them if you come to the fair, and we hope you do. We have a number of other schools and independent schools and public schools who will be present at the fair. Please log on to Handshake. register for the event and you'll see a full list of employers available. And to that end, to help you get ready for the fair, we are hosting a resume lab on Thursday over at Boston Center in room 2047. We are partnering with our colleagues in the Student Academic Hub. They have a really great, engaging workshop about resumes and cover letters, and then they're going to be providing one-on-one feedback to people who attend the workshop. So please make time to attend if you're available. We want to help you feel prepared for the fair, and this is a very important way to do that. So with that, again, thank you so much to our panelists and the wealth of information that you all have. Students, thanks for being here. And this officially concludes the panel. So thank you again, and we will see you soon.